Hi, it's Laurie here at Sew Right Sewing Machines. Today's topic is we're going to discuss feeding your fabric. And there's several ways we can do that. The traditional way where we feed fabric with just our feed dogs. Some machines now carry what they call dual feed in a number of different terminologies. And then the traditional way that people have utilized a feed mechanism with the walking foot. Why is feed so essential a topic? It really matters in terms of how that fabric moves when you stitch. Does it move evenly? Does it move smoothly? So sometimes people get different mechanisms because there's challenging fabric, like velvet or minky, where you might need an additional aid, more than the normal feed dogs supplied by the machine. So dual feed can cover some of that. A walking foot can cover a lot of ground in terms of dealing with challenging fabrics. Another issue might be the thickness of a fabric. Are we trying to work on a shoulder padded jacket? Are we working on a bag? Are we working on leather? So those are all questions, or faux fur. Those are all questions that you might have in terms of trying to do some accomplished sewing at home. So let me take you step by step through all of that now. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, because a lot of machines have it now, is a dual feed. So I have a sample of what would happen without any type of feeding mechanism at all. And I'm addressing it as a walking foot, but let's just pretend that I want to do a quilt. I don't have a walking foot. I don't have dual feed. What would happen? So if I look at the back of my sample, you see a lot of puckering. And that is because the feed dogs itself can't accomplish all the work you need. So what happens is you might have a beautiful looking top and a bad looking bottom. A lot of quilters say, oh, I quilted, look how great it is. But then when they turn over their work or are ready to bind it, they discover you don't really have anywhere near perfection. So that's why a lot of people use these other devices. Another issue is with just normal feed dogs, which are these gears here, they move the fabric, the bottom layer of fabric. Say you've got one or two layers. What happens then? Shifting occurs. You've got some drag. And then oftentimes as a sewist, you might actually say, I want to keep it smooth and even, so you're pulling it even more, creating more drag. And therefore your two layers don't meet up properly. And that's where dual feed helps. I'm going to show you this particular Bernina 770 just as an example of dual feed. We'll move on to other models as we have a discussion. But the dual feed mechanism is located in the back. And it attaches with this cutout here on this particular foot right here, so it mates up. And why that's essential is this feed dog here, the lower feed dog, addresses feeding the lower level of fabric. How do we address the top? We have this mechanism here, the dual feed, that has little teeth in it that match up with the gears in the feed dog. And the two combine, so when you take a stitch, it advances or pulls the fabric back rather than forward to help it keep an even feed. I'm going to now show you what happens when we engage it. So in this particular Bernina, you'll find the dual feed here. You only can use feet that have that cutout, that are designated D for dual feed. So I'm going to put that mechanism down right onto the cutout. I'm going to lower my foot, and then we're going to sew. Now I've got 3 layers of fabric. Some people say, I don't need a walking foot, and we'll discuss that later. I'm just going to use my dual feed. It's great because it's convenient. There's lots of convenience involved. It is pulling the fabric, but it's not efficiently pulling it as much as a walking foot might. So let's try this out. Okay, that's the Bernina hum. And you see it's pretty quiet. Another point of advice is I might set my sewing advisor to a thicker layer of fabric. If I forget to do so, I'm going to increase my stitch length a tad because I'm getting tiny stitches because I've got a lot of layers to go through. So I might increase my stitch length. And most quilters do to at least 3 or 3.5. So I'm going to do that right now. Let's do 3.25. Let's do the middle. And then you're going to see, I'm going to take my sample out and show you how that stitch looks different because I just increased the stitch width a little bit. Excuse me, not width, but length. Okay, I'm going to cut it. You'll see it's a bit tighter here because it was at the traditional 2.5. Here I've got a nicer, even, less taut looking stitch because I increased the stitch length a little. Let's see what happened on the back. I have a white thread on the back. So it looks a bit better. There is a slight bit of that little puckering, but not as much as this. Again, because it's dual feed. If I put the walking foot on, I bet that I won't have any of this puckering going on. I've removed the dual feed foot, and now I am going to install the walking foot. That's great for quilts, again, challenging fabrics like home deck, upholstery, a nice bag, or a nice faux leather project you might be working on. And the mechanism looks pretty complex, so let me show you it in all its glory here. We've got, let me lift this up. What we've got here are the openings for your bottom feed, the feed dogs. What we have up here is a fork to attach to the needle clamp of your sewing needle. And this again is Bernina branded. We've got this here to attach to the machine itself. This is nice because every stitch you take, it's walking along with it. And compared to the dual feed, even though it's convenient to have the dual feed on all the time and use that, you might be a little lazy, you don't want to think about using it. This is 5 times worth the efficiency in terms of feeding fabric because you've got this huge mechanism here on the surface of your fabric helping it guide it. Not just one little pinpoint that you would find back here in the dual feed, but this whole mechanism, all right? So I am going to install this and we're going to see what happens. In the Bernina brand, you're going, well, I can't find the walking foot on the menu. It's the number 50 foot, and I've already assigned it to the machine. In addition to the soles, you'll find these funny looking things. A lot of people know what they are, but in case you don't, these are bars to help you, quilting bars. And you have a left and a right bar, and they help you create a guide in terms of where you might want your next stitch line to be, and they fit in the back of the walking foot. Rather than having to heavily mark your quilt, you can use these bars as a way to mark your next sewing line. So, for example, so that say that you've quilted this line, you want to move on the next, and you want to create a distance, then you're going to move the bar or adjust it accordingly to the center where your needle might be. All right? So let's install it now. It's a little clumsy and awkward, okay? Because it's a large mechanism. So what's recommended with the Bernina foot is rather than putting it in that little conical thing, I'm going to use my fork. And I'm first going to go from behind the machine, put the fork on that needle bar, and wiggle it into place. Worst case scenario, you can always move your needle if you have, difficulty positioning it. And then I'm going to find the cone. I believe I have it. My needle looks pretty centered, and now I'm going to put my lever down to put it in place. Okay, I have it on. So you can kind of see how it looks. Maybe I'm going to manipulate the hand wheel so you can see how it operates, okay? Because we've got little pads here too to help push the fabric. There's also some tapering here. That helps you feed the fabric without it getting stuck under that heavy layer, which is why you've got this kind of uplift tapering thing going on. All right, so I'm just going to rotate it once. Okay, one. And you can see the dogs moving. And you see the foot pick up, and you can see the dogs moving again and picking up, all right? So we've got that mechanism going. You know what I didn't do, which might be even more helpful, is if I lowered the foot. But you can see how they kind of work in coordination with each other to feed the fabric. All right. Now, let's actually feed some fabric now. I'm going to pick up my foot. I already designated on the screen that we've got the number 50 foot on because this machine likes to know what it's doing, what task it has. I might also go into the fabric advisor and tell them what I'm doing. So I'm on a heavy woven and I am quilting. So I am going to go here and see what happens. Okay. Here we go. Let me designate again the right foot. Okay. I started a line of sewing with you all, so I'm going to continue working on that same thing so you can see the differences. Again, without a walking foot, with the dual feet on, and now let's see what happens when I sew with the walking foot on. You're going to hear a difference as well. And away we go. You can see the mechanism, the pads moving the fabric through. So we're getting a lot more surface area than we did with that one little single dual feed mechanism in the back. I'm going to try to go a little faster, and then I want to compare to see whether or not we have as much puckering or any puckering at all compared to the dual feed. Okay, I'm going to cut the fabric right now. All right, you and I are taking a look together. Okay, so here we go. This is the front. Oh, wow. Look at the back. Nice and even, no broken stitches, nice balance, and none of that tunneling happened. So that's the advantage of using a walking foot. I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial about dual feed versus walking foot feed. And I would welcome you to come in and try it out yourself here at the store at Sew Right Sewing Machines. You can contact any of the staff here at 718-468-5858 or give us an email shout out at info@sewright.com. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you again soon.